Western Balkan countries rely heavily on coal and other fossil fuels for heat and power. This not only contributes to global warming, it compromises air quality and affects health. In addition, current unsustainable wood extraction rates put mature forests at risk. Governments and industry want to make energy more sustainable, introducing renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, hydro, and biomass to meet their climate goals and increase energy security while keeping people employed. In Serbia alone, some 1.6 million hectares of agricultural and mining land are degraded or abandoned. Here, fast-growing perennial bioenergy crops, such as willow, poplar, or reeds, can be grown sustainably for biomass. These plantations can grow for 25 years and are harvested every other year. The initial investments typically pay off after 5 years. Bioenergy crop plantations will be established with agroforestry borders and forest conservation areas to restore degraded land, regenerate soils, increase biodiversity, protect forests, improve water and air quality, sequester carbon, and create job opportunities. 75,000 hectares of bioenergy plantations could replace 10% of the current coal-based electricity production in Serbia. Windmills and solar panels can be combined with bioenergy crops on degraded land to further increase the share of renewables. Bioenergy crop plantations are work-intensive. This is great news. A large number of permanent green jobs will be created for miners and farmers, both directly and from innovative uses of the crops in packaging, pharma, and fodder. A green and just transition away from coal is within reach. Join us and our partners in supporting a green and just transition in the Western Balkans.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to our event on the clean energy transition in the Western Balkans, where we will be talking about biomass, about renewables, about biodiversity, and about green jobs. Not clean, maybe also clean jobs, but green jobs in particular. And I'd like to welcome you, those of you in this room and those of you in participating in a virtual form, very warmly to this event. You just have seen the movie, which came from our establishment of pilot plantations this year in Serbia and also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we have a wonderful panel consisting of speakers where we work in Serbia and in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you will be taken through this discussion, through the discussion of bioenergy crops, but also renewables in a more general way in the context of the green agenda for the Western Balkans, green agenda transformation. My name is Christopher Matthews. I work for CIFOR, Center for International Forestry Research, and ICRAF, the World Agroforestry Center, both merged together. I represent the German office of this organization. I'm going to introduce the speakers one by one. We have a few speakers in the room. We have a few speakers online. And we have about an hour of an event, and we are going to have a question and answer session later. So I'd like to move directly to the next speaker, Dr. Tony Simons, who is the Executive Director of CIFOR ICRAF and also Director General of ICRAF. Tony, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chris. And it's a delight to speak to you this morning, to the 300 people here in the European Union Pavilion and the 30,000 people online. Now, scientists might exaggerate some things, but we're not exaggerating is the appeal and the complexity and the benefit of this amazing project in Serbia, launched with our partners here, E3I and the Serbian government and Serbian partners. It's absolutely amazing. As Chris said, I am the Director General of C4 ICRAF. I also am the Director of Resilient Landscapes, our new entity that is private sector and private investor facing, because we understand that we need to connect the science and the development opportunities to investors, public and private investors, as well as the private sector, particularly the corporates. So I'd like to kick off with 3 points and make 3 points. And that is, the European Union has been at the forefront of thinking on the Green Deal, on being nature positive, on the circular economy. And we are all trying to fix the emissions gap. But we have more fundamentally is a solutions gap. We have our aspiration, we have our pledges, we have our commitments, but the ability to reach those is where we're failing. And it's an absolute delight to be associated with this project in Serbia with a private sector partner to try and fill that gap. Resilient Landscapes, our new private sector, private investor facing entity, looks at 5 things: technical feasibility, operational deliverability, environmental sustainability, and social and political acceptability, and lastly, financial viability. And all too often, the financial viability is paramount. Everything else is subordinate to it. And it's been a great journey and a great learning for us here to partner with people that don't put that financial viability as the principal criteria, to making sure that things are technically feasible, we can deliver it, it's environmentally sustainable and politically and socially acceptable and driven. So that's a key point. The Green Deal, it's about chlorophyll. The green is chlorophyll, this amazing pigment that turns water and CO2 and sunlight into essentially sugar. And that gets converted to fiber or retains as sugar or oil to be used in biomass. The second point I would like to speak to is the theme that runs through much of this COP26. How do we protect, how do we restore, how do we better manage land and natural resources to protect our climate? So protection is important. You saw those degraded landscapes. Protecting those from further degradation, increasing land health is very important. Restoration, and it's not just restoring the perhaps the vegetation cover, but the functioning of that entire ecosystem. And lastly, managing. It is all about land use. It's about how we look at things in a landscape perspective. And you're going to hear from our other speakers very eloquently about how we tie those elements together. The forests, the agricultural land, the land for energy, the land for food production, the land for water purification. And we cannot look at forestry or biodiversity or water or land health in isolation. The complexity involved in all of our interlinked SDGs and problems is too immense to be able to do that. And this project, this initiative by the Serbian government and others, is amazing because it builds on all of these principles without necessarily being so explicit about it. But it's a delight for us and to be engaged. And we look forward to hearing the latest progress and update from our key partners. Chris, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thanks for reminding us of the complexities of the issue and also of the need to consider not only the technical and operational viability, but also the finance, the social side of things. I'd like to hand over to the next speaker, Bonnie Norman, who is the president of E3 International. E3 International is the partner we have been working with for the last 2 years on starting this program. E3 International is based in Washington, D.C., but also has an office in Belgrade, and thus the feet on the ground and the mind on the ground. And that's what we're going to hear from you, Bonnie, what the project is about. And I think we're having slides.
Thank you, Christopher. It's really a pleasure to be here, and very excited to be here on the day after the Glasgow Leaders' Declaration on Forest and Land Use, promising to stop deforestation by 2030 and putting the promise of funds behind that. So we are all excited to share with you our project in support of that initiative, really, in advance, but laying the groundwork and hoping to further that with our work in Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Western Balkans more generally. Our project is called the Sustainable Land, Livelihoods and Energy Initiative, and we're working in cooperation with C4E CRAF. And basically, what we're trying to do is get bioenergy crops done right and within the landscape. So, and the goal, as you saw in the short video, is jobs, health, heat, power. And what's interesting when you look at that slide, we are all passionate about stopping deforestation, and there's tremendous pressure on the forests in Serbia already. 1 million people use forest wood for heat in Serbia alone. There are pellet factories, lots of cogeneration, tremendous pressure. So demand for wood use needs to come from a sustainable source. And if you look in these photos, you see that we're putting little sticks in the ground, and very rapidly, even with one growing season, they can get to be 2 meters tall. And it's not a forest we're creating, but it's a harvestable, sustainable crop done with best practices. And it's a perennial crop, so we put it in the ground once, and it grows for 25 years. We cut it back after the first year, and then every other year it can be harvested. And there's not just one solution. There's woody biomass, which is the energy willow. There's reedy biomass, which can be used for biogas in the circular economy to supplement agricultural waste. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. And in addition, as we're looking at restoring large tracts of degraded land, whether it's agricultural land, mining areas, or landfill areas, we can also co-locate renewables, as you see in those photos. And because of the agricultural context, there's also an opportunity for added income through solar thermal greenhouses. Let's go to the next slide. So when we think about this, it's really context, approach, and partners that matter in providing a solution. And as we look at Serbia, there's 1.6 million hectares of abandoned and degraded agricultural land that was identified in a UNDP study in 2016. Obviously, this is fluid. So when you add in then the coal mining areas and you add in the landfill areas, we feel comfortable that there's a very large amount of abandoned and degraded land, the lower cadastre land. And so that's our focus. It's not tearing down forest. It's not using land for food production. And just looking at 75,000 hectares eventually. Right now we're at 10. We're looking to go to 100 hectares next year, 1,000 hectares the next year, and then investable blocks of 4,000 hectares after that. So rapidly getting to scale by 2030, but trying to be intentional and deliberate in the early stages so we really have good learning and best practices and are making sure we get this done right. The objective, from the very start, we've known that this would be a bankable solution based on other work that's been done. The challenge, as Tony pointed out, is that it's a financial issue of not generating cash right away. We don't really generate harvest revenues until after 3 years, but by 5 years we're cash flow positive, and for the next 20 years we're throwing off cash. So it's a great opportunity for the farmers, the coal miners, and the off-takers, because what it will do is create a sustainable market for biomass where we can have long-term fixed-price contracts for off-take. And so our objective, though, as we scale up, is to get to a $1 billion Sustainable Balkans finance facility. to bring in investment, just to blend private capital along with public purpose money, whether it's from the state, a redirection of subsidies, or otherwise, to help scale this up. But we believe we can create a very bankable investment at scale, of which the bioenergy crops would be perhaps only a fifth of that $1 billion, and other renewable energy technology investments could be the other. So really, it doesn't take a lot to make a big difference. And what we'll see is that we're doing this in a landscape approach. We're doing it in such a way that we combine agroforestry borders around the bioenergy crops, so it's not a monoculture focus. And we're adding in non-agricultural areas permanent tree areas. So we feel really happy about the environmental approach of this. And as we look forward, because it's relatively labor intensive versus other renewable energy technologies, we see it as a great opportunity to create between 10 and 20,000 just transition jobs. So let's go to the next. And really what we're all about is landscape transformation. You can see in the top slide, it's kind of bleak. And as we're working toward a greener and bluer environment, because one component of these plants is they are wonderful for environmental restoration. They have phytoremediation properties that pull the toxins out of the degraded soil into the root ball. And it's not that part that you burn. They're also pulling carbon into the root ball to sequester carbon. And so what you have is an opportunity for air purification, water purification, and regeneration of soil. So at the end of the 25-year period, the soil then would be much healthier for real agricultural food production. And that's an important goal. The other things I'd like to share with you are really around the bioeconomic opportunities for new value chains, whether it's fodder from the top centimeters of the willow plant, or whether there are other components. We see a great opportunity both with the agroforestry borders, where you might have honey production and different fruit and nut trees, to our main crop, to really create sustainable bioeconomic value chains. And when we look at the impact, we can look at 75,000 hectares. That can replace 10% of the coal in Serbia. So we're looking at this as part of a portfolio of solutions. We're not saying bioenergy is the cure. We're saying in this context, and with an approach to this, a landscape approach, we can achieve 75,000 hectares of all of that abandoned and degraded land, which is 5%, and really make a difference in the utilization of coal. And as a transition step, which has made it more appealing, it can also be co-fired with coal to immediately improve air quality, reduce SOx and NOx, and the other contaminants. So it can make a difference even in co-firing, but it also can stand on its own to address some of the objectives around air quality in Serbia and in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so let's go to the next one. So finally, these are a number of the benefits, just in summary. We see this as sustainable renewable energy. We see it biomass for heat and power, and supplementing the agricultural waste for biogas. It's a non-intermittent fuel source, which means it's a great base load, and provides a great transition fuel as we move toward more sustainable intermittent sources. Because we do see the end game being solar and wind and others, geothermal. Green jobs, we're very keen on that as part of the just transition, and have already been engaging with the coal mining workers, and you'll hear more about through our partners. Rural economic development is key, improved air quality, biodiversity will come with the landscape approach. And most importantly, from where this started was just around protecting the forest, which is what we heard yesterday, and so we wanted to reinforce that. But our partners are wonderful. You're going to be hearing from them soon, and I don't want to take any more time. So,
thank you, Barney, for the comprehensive introduction of a complex approach. My pleasure is now to introduce you to Mrs. Biljana Ramic, who is from the Ministry of Mining and Energy in Serbia. And she's in this ministry working on the energy sector development strategy. Biljana, it's really a pleasure to have you here on our panel. What do you say about all of that? Is it feasible? Is it viable? And does it fit into what Serbia intends to do?
First of all, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for this participation on this panel. I'm very glad to be here. Let me first to remind you or introduce you with some information, with some figures from Serbian energy balance. You know, Serbia consumes energy between 15 and 16 million tons of oil equivalent every year, and 10 million tons of oil equivalent is from domestic production. The share of renewables in this domestic production is coming is 20%, and biomass has very important position in this domestic production. More than 1 million tons of oil equivalent is consumed, the most of that in households. But I just also would like to stress that regarding electricity production, 70% is coming from coal, lignite, domestic lignite, and 30% from renewables, and most of these renewables are from hydropower plants. I also would like to stress that Serbia has obligations under Energy Community Treaty, and Serbia signed Sofia Declaration about green agenda for Western Balkans, and in accordance to this, Serbia confirmed its commitment to support EU policy and green agenda in the field of energy and climate. That means that we need to define new energy policy, our targets for 2030 in the field of energy efficiency, renewables, and CO2 emission reduction, and our vision for 2050. Having in mind our energy mix, where the most important role for now has lignite, we are certainly faced with many challenges, as you said, and with energy transition. So we are now in the process of the definition new energy policy, and we prepare several very important documents. First of all, we are in the process of the preparation integrated national energy and climate plan. At the same time, we prepare a new energy sector development strategy, and also we are working on the action plan for just transition. We believe that we need to find new direction for energy policy. It should be more green, and we need certainly to use more renewable energies, and biomass and bioenergy certainly will have its significant and important role in this new energy policy on the one side, and on the other side also regarding just transition. Mm-hmm. That's all for now.
Thank you so much. Thanks. That's a real cool explanation of what's going on in Serbia right now in the field of energy transition. Thanks so much. I would like to leave the panel sitting in the room for a moment and go to the part of the panel that is not in the room. We have online Professor Dr. Sanela Klaric. She is a member of Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but she's also the chairwoman of the Green Council, Green Deal Transition Council. And I hope you can hear us. Yes?
Yes.
And now I'm seeing you. Okay. Hi. Great that we have you here, although you're not in the room, you're with us. Please, what do you think about this from your point of view?
Thank you for the opportunities to be with you online. My name is Anela Klaric. I'm a member of the parliament on the federal level, not on the state level. I'm also architect and a professor, and now I'm on the International Birch University with my students. If we're talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's very important to say that we don't have clearly defined agriculture and forestry policy here, and we have never really put in the focus agriculture, forestry, and rural development in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So on the first slide, if you will share, you will see that we are doing a lot on that, and we did even prepared one research cost-benefit analysis, how much Bosnia will benefit if we have that ministry on the state level as a managing authority, because beside that ministry as a managing authority, we need to have payment agency and a strategy for rural development, and that will allow us to fulfill the requirements of the EU partnership agreements as a short term, but also to use EPAD funds. Since 2007, Bosnia and Herzegovina have never used EPAD funds, instruments for pre-accession process, and that's why we somehow actually didn't, have never have good investments in those sectors. The same is for the energy. We don't have a ministry for the energy or environment on the state level, and that's why if we're talking about annual progress reports from the EU or reports from the energy community, you will see that in that reports, we are really going very, very slowly in any harmonization with the EU. But from the other side, our politicians are very, very ready to go to Sofia to sign on the behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina and have declarative approach, like they sign the agreement about EU Green Deal, but on the field, they are really doing nothing. From the other side, we have citizens' initiatives. We have a lot of citizens' initiatives, but also beside the citizens' initiative, we have a lot of initiatives from the businesses and the industry. So if we're now talking about different topics, I will start with the biomass. By my knowledge, because I checked the Association of the Biomass in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are really progressing every year, and we have really a very, very strong development of the production of the pellets, but only from the wood waste, not from any other, like agricultural waste or other stuff. And also, we don't have any subsidies for that. So this is just initiatives come from the industry and businesses, together with other industries who are producing energy efficient stoves for the biomass. So if you're talking about renewable energy sources, we again have unharmonized policies in that level. So in our policies, we do not recognize prosumers, auctions. We don't recognize green certification of the energy. So everything what is really set up now with the Sofia agreements or EU Green Deal is something that is not recognized by any strategies or any policies in Bosnia and Herzegovina. From the other side, if we're talking about renewables, we have really a huge citizens demonstrations, especially if we're talking about small hydropower infrastructures. Because citizens actually saw that because we didn't set up strong requirements for from the environment protection, they're actually destroying the environment with these buildings. And in that sense, really, we have very, very brave people who are defending the rivers in this moment. We also, if we're talking about energy efficiency, Unfortunately, we have legislations in Bosnia and Herzegovina are on the level from the EU since 2011. So we didn't recognize nearly zero energy buildings at all, or a sustainable approach to the architecture. In that sense, we are focusing really only on retrofitting of the buildings using very artificial materials. So we are not focusing on the sustainable land use or renewables, local economy, or natural materials, non-toxic materials, indoor air quality, health, nothing. So we are just focusing on the energy without quality of the life, and citizens don't want to have that. So we have a huge requirements from the citizens to change that. If we're talking about land use, we have another problem, because we don't have a state level of the planning of the spatial plans. Then we also have the opportunities on the entity levels or cantonal levels, especially on the local levels, on the municipality levels, that we have municipality mayors as sheriffs who are actually using the land as they want. And again, the citizens are the one who wants to make the changes. Politicians are not talking too much about that. Only a couple of us in the parliament actually are talking about that. So having all of that on mind, actually, we need to discuss about this citizens' initiatives, because the major problem of the politicians are that they don't see the energy and climate, environment protection and climate change as the opportunity. They see that as a problem, and they are repeating that we are very poor country, but actually they don't recognize that by the waste that actually we are rich, because we have a lot of waste that we could use from the agriculture, forestry, and other industry. Only one industry, as a BIMAL, are using the full agricultural waste in their production. There are also some farmers, but not any strategic approach on that. And it is very important to say that in this moment in Bosnia and Herzegovina, politicians are really focusing on the division, on the war. Even it's very, very strong now that people are very afraid. And it's important to say here, because climate change, environment protection doesn't recognize any borders. And it's really important to say that the citizens in Bosnia and Herzegovina demanding better quality of life, and they demanding changes towards the EU Green Deal. And there are some of the strengths here, and we really hoping that in the future we will have much, much more better progress and much, much more better opportunities to talk about good practices.
It's a really important aspect you're bringing up. First, the policy gaps that still need to be filled, and second, also the role of citizens and the interest of citizens in actually moving forward with this agenda, because they feel it themselves, both the situation of losing jobs in industries that are related to energy but are maybe phasing out and need to be phased out because of the context, the greater context of EU policies that are also having great repercussion in the Balkans, but also because people on the ground, they also know, and I have seen that actually in Bosnia when I was there in September, people on the ground are really interested in this transition because they also know what the future is bringing to them. So thanks very much for this intervention. I would like to go back to Serbia again, but in this case to call upon the next panelist, who is also online, Milena Đakonović, who is actually working in the public enterprise, which is the Serbian electricity power company in Serbia, EPS. And there, Milena, you are head of division for environmental planning. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like firstly to thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel, which is quite significant for all of us here. I would like to briefly present you couple of slides regarding my company and the projects that are very important in this issue of the energy transition. I'm working as the head of the division for the environmental protection in time power plants and combined heat and power plants. So I would kindly ask you if we can share the presentation or. Sorry. Can I see the presentation? Sorry, because I just, okay, sorry, I was, anyhow, the EPS company is the state-owned company producing electricity from the thermal power plants. Roughly 70% of the electricity is produced in lignite thermal power plants, and 30% of electricity is produced in hydropower plants. The energy transition as a global challenge is very significant on the regional and also on the national levels. When we talk about the electricity production in Serbia, we have some kind of quite tradition in this area since the first power plant was constructed in 1893 and the first hydropower plant was put into operation in 1900. As a state-owned company, EPS follows the global trends in the energy sector and acts accordingly. But we are aware of the national circumstances, and we have to operate, of course, in compliance with our national legal and strategic framework. Since we are, let's say, aware of the energy transition issues, EPS is investing both into environmental protection projects, but also in the projects that are using renewable energy sources. Talking about the renewables, as I already said, we are producing about 30% of electricity from the hydropower plants. So our renewable projects can be divided in two sectors, investment into the existing capacities and investment into the new renewable capacities. We managed to increase our existing renewable hydropower plant capacities by rehabilitation of the power system, and in the recent project we increased something about 150 megawatts just by rehabilitation of the existing power plants. The next projects that are going to increase the capacity by additional almost 50 megawatts. But beside the existing one, we are planning to invest in the new capacities, new hydropower plant capacities, something about 600 megawatts of new capacities, including the power pumping the hydropower plants. We are planning, of course, to invest into the solar and wind projects. Our plan is to invest, to construct the 66 megawatts of the wind park in Kostolac. And we are currently developing 2 solar projects with a total capacity of something slightly above 100 megawatts. EPS invested lots of money, some 600 million of euros into environmental projects, but this is not the end. We are planning to invest in the next 10 years additional 700 million euros in order to operate in compliance with the EU and national environmental regulations.
So these are your plans for the next 10 years, is that correct?
Until 2032.
But you have also now recently engaged, taken the first steps, to so to say, in engaging in biomass. What's your idea on this, the bioenergy crops?
yeah, we are partners with E3 International. We have realized the project with them. Project is called Sustainable Land, Livelihood and Energy Initiatives. We have planted 3 hectares of different types of willows on the mining site Field G landfill of the open cast mine in Kolubara. And this is we have very good experience with this project, since this is not good only from the aspect of the biomass, for the cultivation of the biomass, but also from the aspect of reclamation of the soil, and the aspect of additional jobs in the green industry.
So you see that as a positive development?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Of course.
I think we need to move on a little bit. Thanks a lot for your contributions, and thanks for supporting this. It's really great to see you on board with this. We still have 3 more speakers, so I'm pressing a little bit on. Sorry for that, and sorry we couldn't show your slides. The next speaker is Professor Dr. Mustafa Music, who is hailing from the energy company from Bosnia and Herzegovina, where he's head of the strategic planning, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, Mr. Music. Good to see you again. Please, your floor is yours.
Good morning once again to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to participate on this panel and to wish you successful discussion. I'm sure it will be excellent. My name is Mustafa Music. I'm Deputy of General Management for Development in my country, and also I'm professor on Sarajevo University, part-time professor on Sarajevo University. I didn't prepare a presentation. I prepared a short discussion, first of all, focused on our cooperation with the USA company, A3 International. But first of all, I would like to say a few sentences related to my company. In my country, there are 3 power companies. Electrical BAG, my company, is the biggest company. Our generation portfolio structure involves 1,165 megawatt in thermal power plant run on coal, and 565 megawatt in renewable energy-based facilities. Renewable energy-based facilities comprise mostly of large hydropower plants, few small hydropower plants, and recently 1 wind power plant which will start in operation in the beginning of this year. The share of fossil fuels in the electricity production is dominant and usually amounts about 70 to 75% from the coal. It is important to emphasize that some of our thermal units run in cogeneration mode and supply heat to the neighbor city, in this case in Tuzla, Lukavac, and in the future in the Živinice. It is important to emphasize that electrical BAG concern includes also 7 coal mines, employing a significant number of local inhabitants. The coal region transition process is also one of our focuses. Several mining locations have completed exploitation as well as land cultivation, and there are large number of free area which can be used in a sustainable and economically viable way. So by the end of 2020, our team has performed mapping of available exploited mining area with an aim of identifying suitable location for photovoltaic power plants installation and for establishment of biomass plantation. We have planned to install on this area about 250 megawatt in photovoltaic power plants. In February 2021, Electrical BAG has started of collaboration with American company E3 International. As a result of that cooperation, we have jointly managed to train employees at 2 coal mines, and we have established experimental plantation of fast-growing willow. We have trained 2 hectares on 2 form coal mine areas, 1 hectare in coal mine area Kreka and 1 in coal mine area Breza. The pilot projects were realized during the May and June of this year. We are currently monitoring the progress of the plantation, maintaining them regularly and recording all activities and costs. When the time is right, we aim to start using the fast-growing biomass in the process of co-firing with all of our existing thermal power plants. Namely, based on experiments that we have conducted several years ago, we have confirmed that biomass can be used with a share of up to 10% without intervention of the existing boilers. Based on the results of the excellent collaboration that we have with E3 International Company, our management board has approved our recommendation to extend the plantation to 20 hectares in next year and to multiply that in 2023 and 2024 to several hundred hectares.
Can you say something about the job situation? How this plays out in terms of jobs for your company?
Yes, I have intention to say something about that. With that in mind, we have applied for grant funds and we will continue to search for technical and financial support. Without this support, the transition process will be practically impossible because you know Bosnia and Herzegovina is a small and poor country. We have no funds which will support these projects.
We need to wrap up a little bit here because we have still 2 more speakers. But I just wanted to hear whether you think this is a positive development in terms of jobs for miners, or what's your opinion on this?
We have intention to retrain our employers in coal mine to continue to work in the energy sector, in the power sector, to work on the biomass plantation, to prepare biomass for co-firing or for firing in power plants, and to retain their jobs. Mm-hmm. This is our intention. Also, our intention to employ some of them to product electricity from the photovoltaic power plant. Mm-hmm. This is our intention, of course. Okay. Now in a coal mine, we have about 7,000 employees, and all of them will not be employed in this new job, but we recognize this possibility using biomass in co-firing with coal in our power plant. Mm-hmm. We think that some of them will find new job and new possibility for work.
So at least it is a positive development and something that can give a perspective for some of these people. Well, thank you very much for your contribution. I'm sorry, we need to move on a little bit because we only have 10 minutes and this event has to stop sharp because the next event is coming on in this hall here. I'd like to go back to the panel here in the room. Our last speaker is Mr. Dr. Dushan Jovich, who works with E3 International, but in Serbia, as I said before. Dushan, please, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning to everybody. Wouldn't repeat what the previous speaker said. I just want to emphasize our cooperation with the Olof Palme International Center. directly the issue we just opened, and Professor Music mentioned that in a just transition. Recently we had one roundtable meeting in Sarajevo where this issue was raised, and all impressions and feelings are very good and very positive. The board of directors support this initiative, and we believe that this is something new and good in coal mine sector, where the surplus of the employees can be solved on the quite a good way through the engagement in the horizon, the energy plantations, and establishing the plantations that can provide jobs for the people who will stay without their jobs in coal mines. So this part of activities will be continue. In December we will have a similar meeting in Serbia, where we will introduce the people from the EPS, from the electric power industry of Serbia, about these activities, and we do hope that whole process, let's say, it's not just a simple project for establishing the energy plantation, it's just a process or program that is related with many other aspects, and this social component is one of the most important one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dushan. I'm not sure we have a question and answer now. Sorry, question to the...
And to build, if I may,
Sorry?
on Dushan's last comment, I also wanted to acknowledge our other major project partner from a donor side, and that is the Austrian Development Agency, who's been involved in co-funding our work, this early work, in advance of our being able to scale it up commercially, and with a focus on business partnerships.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have a few questions coming in from the audience that is both in the room and online. Question to Tony and Bonnie: how is this collaboration approach applicable to other countries in the Balkans and beyond? Please, quickly, one sentence answers, if you can.
I think measuring what performance is. If everyone is declaring targets and goals and measuring outcomes in different ways, we can't add those up and look at efficiencies and progress and benefit.
And I would say wherever you have degraded coal mining areas, you have an opportunity for sustainable bioenergy plantations to support a just transition and an improved environment.
Dushan?
To be more concrete, there is also a request from the Macedonia about continuation of the program in their countries, so we are just expecting from them to ratify the MOUs with us, and then we will continue.
Okay. So expansion already in the Balkans region. Is there another question? Okay. For Professor Sanela Klaric, lately you are working on indoor air quality projects in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Do you have any concrete actions in the field with regard to those findings?
Yes, but before that, I just would like to say that it's really important not only to use wood as a biomass, but wood as a construction, as a material for the buildings, and only waste from the forestry industry and from the agriculture industry, because we have a lot of waste for that. But if you're talking about indoor quality, also materials, natural materials are very important, because we are facing the problems in Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina about quality of the air outside, but also we have to know that 90% of the time we are inside, and we measured some of the parameters in the schools, and it's important to link indoor air quality and noise protection with the energy efficiency buildings, to using the natural local materials, because we have that industry to use, and then to improve the materials in the interior to actually help. And that should be requirements, that should be really a part of the policies in Bosnia and Herzegovina, like it is now in the EU. And we are now actually in 3 cantons, we adopted the resolution for the better indoor air quality. Now we are actually going to work with those governments on the cantonal levels to try to improve and to set up some rules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to particularly for drawing the attention to this additional aspect that refers to building isolation in terms of keeping the warmth in the buildings as much as you can. Do we have other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to the audience in the room. Our last speaker is Mr. Antoine Avignon. He's from the EU delegation mission to Serbia, and there he is the program manager for environment and climate change. Antoine, thank you very much for being here. You're going to wrap up the session for us. What are you saying?
Good morning, everyone from Belgrade in Serbia in the Western Balkans. And very happy to join you online and to meet you and to see the people in Glasgow. So much expertise and willingness to join the green transition. And I particularly say hello to my colleagues of Serbian government that are there in Glasgow. We are, of course, from Belgrade, following what Serbian delegation is doing in Glasgow, and there has been some good developments and many questions asked by the President Vučić yesterday in his speech. And most of these questions are we need to find answers together as regard, in particular, green financing. And as far as this. As far as the EU is concerned, you all know very well that the EU has set up a very high ambition on climate neutrality, on zero carbon, and has somehow contributed to this green energy transition and over the world together with its partners. And that this is remarkable because we were not there 3 years ago. Paris Agreement 5 years ago was shaken by some important countries leaving the table, and now we see that referring directly to the US, friend is back to the agreement, and that's very good news. We see India is back. India is entering with also great ambitions, and we have seen also many countries pledging for forest to stop deforestation. There is a great deal on methane cut. So we, of course, the future and our children will judge us if COP26 was up to the ambition. But look, this is work ongoing, work in progress. We are seeing policies changing, like, for example, the colleague from the Ministry of Energy mentioned for Serbia a new energy policy, new rules that are going to be implemented. We see that Bosnia and Herzegovina is also pushing in that direction. My personal opinion is that it's never enough. We need to do better, including at the EU level, including at the EU member state level. And this is this dynamic that we are trying to bring to the Western Balkans, of course, with the Sofia Declaration on Green Agenda for the Western Balkans that is signed by all the Western Balkans. And we can see that this dynamic is kicking. For example, the project presented today by E3 is remarkable in this sense, because it's probably would not have been possible 3-4 years ago. Now the narrative is changing, the context is changing. The countries and companies such as EPS, of course, they have the difficulties being a 70% coal and lignite, and they will not be able to phase out quickly. But I'm very glad to hear that the Just Transition is on board, and such projects like E3 is proposing, and I have seen it myself in Serbia, near Kolubara. It's going to be a game changer in the sense that it's bringing new ideas, new alternatives, and EPS is, of course, already interested in this. And to do even more to extend this project would provide more alternatives to lignite. Of course, biomass has to be treated with the utmost care, because at the end of the day, it's still burning wood. But if we can achieve to build these wooden crops and bring jobs, and also bring the idea that we can engage in energy transition with no one left behind, with a just and fair social justice, then it will be win-win for everyone. And for even more green, more energy transition, again with social justice in mind. The EU will of course be there for the Western Balkans to accompany this transition. But where we can make a good difference is also to bring the private sector and to leverage funds, so that it's not only grants money, but it's private sector being able to invest in a, let's say, business environment that is conducive to this. We are seeing, honestly, since 1 year, a lot of people asking us how to invest, how to bring new projects, whom to contact. So the EU delegation into Serbia, with our partners from the EU member states, the international financing institutions, and of course, first and foremost, the citizens want to bring this energy transition and greening the economy in Serbia. And I'm very happy that I could have the time to say these words here, because we have no chance to fail towards our children and the future generations. Thank you very much.
So nicely wrapping up this session. Really good that you giving us of renewing us or reminding us of the support that you're going to give from the EU side. And thanks also for pointing again to the complexity. I hope we could show to you, to everybody in this audience, how complex the transition is from basically a 1-2 solution, coal, hydropower, to something that involves 5-6 different sources of energy, and these things need to be developed. These things need to be harmonized and put into a coherent strategy. And we had the speakers from the policy side and from the government side, as well as from the private sector side. Everybody involved, civil society involved. And I think you could also see that this is not only a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity, particularly in this region. You see everybody on board. And so we are confident that this transition can be started and will proceed as quickly as possible with all these players on board. I would like to thank the panel here in the room and also the panelists that were online. Thanks for contributing to this. And I would like to thank the audience for staying till the end and listening to us. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.